Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Fake Nerd Book Club and our first go at it post-Wasted Space, another one that I threw into the pool. I'm Sparks Whitty, and I'm joined by Brandon T. McClure over there.
Hello.
And
Hello.
Ben Magnet.
I'm here.
And Ryan Eliopoulos, DJ Tony Snark himself.
It's me. I'm that guy.
You are that guy. And this week we're talking about The Pride, a Comixology original written by, all of the issues are written by Joe Glass. Mm-hmm. But there are several artists attached to these issues. I'm just going to run down all of them. Art is done by Gavin Mitchell, Dan Harris, Hector Barros, Kendall Goode, J.D. Faith, Gavin Mitchell, Jack Davies, Kris Wildgoose, Marc Ellerby, and... yes. And then colors and inks by Kris Carter, Elizabeth Swann, Nathan Ashworth, Ben Williamson, and Maxime Garbarini. Yes, Garbarini and Hector Barros, and letters by Mike Stock. In all of them, all the issues, letters are by Mike Stock. And then there's cover artists for each one. It's a lot of people.
Yeah. Large creative team on this.
Creative team. This was 7 years in development.
Wow.
If you read the afterword from Joe Glass himself, he says that this whole thing was 7 years in development and got finished because of Kickstarter funding and stuff like that.
Indiegogo stuff too, yeah.
Yeah.
Because he thanks him at the end.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So let's just dive in and discuss.
So what do we think about this one?
I'll go. I hadn't read this before I picked it, so that's part of the whole point of the show is to not know what we're getting ourselves into. And I was really curious because there's not a lot of this is on Comixology. This is a widely promoted gay superhero book.
Yes.
And it has 2 follow-up issues. Follow-up collections. The Pride Adventures Season 1 and then the Pride Season 2. Mm-hmm. Overall, I really like the basic concept and ideas of what is trying to be done here. I just don't think the execution is as good as I want it to be. I don't know. I wanted to ask you guys, because I read this directly. Did you guys get to the origins right after issue 6? Yeah. That was the thing that really cemented for me that I'm like, some of those origins are literally just he's Bruce Wayne.
He's Green Lantern.
Yeah. I was just like,
she's Wonder Woman.
You just I understand that it's hard to reinvent the wheel, but that doesn't mean it can't be done.
And that's the thing. I think without knowing the origins, I do think some of their that's what I was thinking because after 80 years of so many comics, it's hard to create new characters, right? But I do think just when you look at them and their names and stuff, they're pretty original. Yeah. It's when you get to the backstories that are just there's no attempt,
right?
Because you look at something like Black Hammer or any just Elseworld thing, you can do origins like that, but turn it on its head. Comics have been doing that forever.
Yeah.
Of course, there's no original ideas anymore, but you mold them into something.
You can do Superman and different.
Yes.
But this pretty much this didn't try to do that, and to some extent, I can even appreciate or respect that. I didn't think the origins pages for the most part were necessary because I'm like, this is literally just. You could have just replaced it with Bruce Wayne on the one for Wolf, and it would have been the exact same thing, except he's gay. Yeah. And so that doesn't mean anything to me. But that would be fine if I felt like, while I feel like they're very strongly representing things about LGBTQ culture, they're not. It's all surface level. I'm not getting once in a while in the book, I felt like I was really getting connected. A particular moment that I'll spotlight that is this is exactly what I want more of this book to be is when the bear Harvey chases Owen out of the room after he finds out he's HIV positive, and he has an honest conversation with him about it. I'm if more of the book was this moment, that's exactly what I want this book to be.
That was a very real thing, and it taught me stuff about HIV that I didn't know.
And really, it made Harvey's origin in the back is fine, but it made Harvey more fascinating as a character just because of that honest moment. Yeah. And if you could literally have had Wolf be this Bruce Wayne allegory stand-in, but give him something like that. to make it register, because I think this is what I think this is I think it's a really awesome comic for people who feel underrepresented in comics, which is totally justified and is a problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome that they have it, but I don't think it's doing enough to appeal to an audience that wouldn't immediately seek this out anyway. And it's not doing enough to connect and make it relatable. And I feel like it could have. I feel like it was so close to almost getting there.
Yeah, I'll say I think I generally like all the characters. It's not really into the characters I have a problem with. I just think the overall plot and just like from issue to issue, I think the pacing's kind of bad, and like the villain, he kind of just disappears for like a whole issue at times, and I'm just like, I don't really feel a threat. I don't feel the through line of what the story you're telling me. I just feel like these little moments, and if it was like a vignette type of book, that'd be understandable, but it's not. It's a sequential storytelling type of book,
right?
And I just thought a lot of it was, again, like very surface level, except for a few moments here and there.
For sure. I remember reading, totally agree with everything you guys are saying, but I remember reading about the pacing specifically, and I had a hard time getting through issues 1 through 3. It was just, the pacing was off, and it was just hard to kind of like, okay, I'll put this down for a minute and just do something else real quick. But then issue 4, or whatever one was,
has like five artists on it.
I think it was 3. I think 3 is where it clicked in for me.
Yeah,
which is the one where they start. That's where the Harv talking about HIV is. Mm-hmm. That's where the one where they start with the news talking about them as a team.
And so for me, it was to talk a bit more about the pacing. The issue that was just the fight with Basher.
Yes,
that issue was so quick. It's done so fast. After it took me so long to get through the other ones, I'm like, did I finish a whole issue?
Is that 4 or 5?
I think that's 4. That's 4.
Is that the one where there's like a new artist every like 3 pages? Because
that's 5. That's the memorial.
Yeah.
And like I completely understand scheduling. You know, an indie book getting different artists, but man, the art style changes were not just completely different. It felt like a different book, like a couple pages. It was rough. Like,
it was hard.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, sorry to cut you off, Ryan, but it was really hard for me to get into the story sometimes. I mean, I completely understand it. You have different artists on an artisted issue. Okay, that's fine. I can understand that. But when you change artists right in the dead middle, it throws me off. I mean, I don't know if that's just me just liking some.
It's not so much the artist changing that bothered me. It's that each artist interpreted the character so different that some characters I just didn't know who was talking.
There are like 4 or 5 different artists, like every couple pages. It's
in issue 5.
In issue 5
just
alone.
In issue 5 specifically. All the others have a consistent artist.
Yeah.
The artists do change. Issue 1 and 2 are the same, and then
3 has an awesome artist.
3 has a different
no
artist.
Offense to the first
and,
2. And
6 and 4 have their own artists, but 5 has a crap ton of different artists.
And man, like that, it changed so often, like every couple pages. And again, Brandon, you're right. Like you can tell who certain characters were, but sometimes wow, that's I really have to be paying attention.
There are sometimes
like that.
There are sometimes where I'm reading it and Harv Bear doesn't look like Bear. Like he looks like a giant fluff monster. I'm like, Jake
the kid. I swear, he was different one issue to another. I'm like,
I could have sworn that too. And if I didn't see Fabman's awesome cape, okay, I love his cape. I freaking love how the pride flag is on the inside of his cape. I love that. I don't know why. But if I didn't see Fabman's cape, I was like, is that Fabman or is that someone else? Oh, no, that's Fabman. Okay, cool.
The opening of issue 4 just suddenly has all of them in pajamas and underwear. And I'm like, I can't place anyone.
I don't know who's who. It was so hard for me to tell who was who.
Happening. I couldn't recognize Wolf. Wolf is just suddenly, for some reason, in boxers, which he'd never been before, never is later.
I was looking for...
Also, here's the thing. I can get on board with artist changes from issue to issue.
Yeah.
I can deal, especially in an indie comic. That's fine. Even if you're reinterpreting, eventually I reorient myself. Like I did in issue 4. It took me a little bit, but then I'm like, okay, I see where everyone is. We're cool. And it stayed that way for issue 4. I have a really big problem if you're not doing vignette storytelling. If it's not when every time the artist changes, we're changing the story. If you're just changing artists willy-nilly, and that it is so jarring, and frankly, it's really tough because there are artists who are detailing something so nice, and honestly there are preferences in this comic. There are versions where I'm like, I really like this interpretation Issue 3 is one. Issue 6 is another. I think if issue 6 is a nice indie look for this comic that they do not do overall, and I'm like, if they could have just been on one style, I'd be more on board. But it's very hard. There's a particular spot in issue 5. I'm not shaming anyone or anything. I'm just saying, like, when you go from like something that looks so artistic and nice, and then you go to like that rooftop scene between White Trash and Fab Man, where it looks like bad. It looks like Dragon Ball Super Anim. It looks like I did it. It looks like the bad Dragon Ball Super animation where they're cutting costs and it's in the frames where the character's far in the back and they put very little detail on them.
It's in sequences in issue 5 in the beginning of it when I get a first look at Cub. We've only just met and we didn't know who he looked like beforehand, but everyone's talking to him as if the audience should know who this character is already, even though again we didn't get a clear look at him in issue 3. So when we see him, issue 4, right?
I also thought he was like a child, and he's like a grown man.
Me too. I thought he was a child, and then I thought he was Wolf, and then I thought he was Twink, because I was like, this is definitely a character we've met, but he's not. Who is this?
I could have sworn that in the first issue we meet him, he doesn't have sideburns, and then the next issue he has these big ass.
I swear to God, when he is taken from that bus, that is a 14-year-old child.
Okay, so I swear I was the only person. No, he is definitely looks 100% different, because if we're all thinking of that, I thought I was going crazy going, this is not the same character.
I did it too.
Okay, cool. That stinks. That's like art stuff happens, but man, especially like, again, this is an indie book. Like, this dude made it all on his own. So like it's
over the course of 7 years.
Yeah,
so
he's self-published. He's self-published.
Yes, I can grant like a lot of things.
Yeah.
And having looked forward at some of the later Pride works, I can see where like a lot more consistency was brought to the project later. It's just if I'm not compelled enough because of the story, I'd like to be compelled enough because of the art. And I was only like that half the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like, I kind of want to get the cons out of the way because there are pros. Yeah. But I do kind of want to get like a lot of the. I just there's something the moment when we get to the opening of, I think it's issue 3, and all the news sites are talking about them as a team, and the other team is going to show up, the Justice Division to say like, why are you guys trying to make a statement? Essentially,
I like Super Dude. That's a funny character.
I would give anything in the world to watch DC or Marvel take all their LGBTQ characters and say, you know what, we need to not even necessarily form a superhero team, but we need to go and support a cause of, and just have the whole comic book superhero world, how they deal with that.
Yeah.
Those characters and the characters who don't show up or do show up, that kind of thing, like, you know, who feels like
argue
it's
the
okay,
X-Men
like,
is kind of doing that.
You could, but like in a way,
no,
where,
in a
like,
blatant way, no, I know.
But a blatant, like, you know, basically, I wish Marvel or DC would like tackle Comicsgate head on in a comic and have their LGBTQ characters, because the crappy thing is that, like, what's nice about this comic, what they're going for is that these can be A-listers themselves, and in the mainline comics we can't have our A-listers be queer, and it's reasonable because those characters have been around so long. Changing them now to say that they've always been something would be disingenuous. You have to make new characters who can rise to those ranks. But I think the only way to do that is to be more out and public and make it happen. And it made me realize, reading this made me realize how badly I want one of them to do something where they put those characters hardcore right out in front and show the whole comic book world dealing with that event.
Well, the sequence with the Justice Division confronting the Pride, I actually really enjoyed that sequence. I thought that was another sequence that felt really real and was actually trying to say something.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of moments like that, and the moment where Harvey talks about his HIV, I think those help this book.
Where Wolf gets taken out of the Justice Division because he's gay, and everyone's like, you know, we're family friendly. We're like Disney. We can't allow.
That's the kind of thing I want so badly. An issue where Superman has to talk about why he's not sure if he can show up at a Pride event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not even Superman, like, he's probably so altruistic that it'd be fine, but like, you know, Barry or something.
Yeah.
You know, where the conflicting feelings are on it, and actually dive deep, and how Wonder Woman would obviously feel like there's no problem with it.
That Marvel Voices comic book had that exact thing where all the LGBT superheroes came together for a couple pages, and they were like, we're here, and like we're dope, and like, hell yeah. Let's get more of that. that'd be great.
I know, yeah. But this is in its own way trying to create something where it can do that organically, but it has to start from square one. And what I wish so badly is I honestly wish that all 6 of these issues, there was no villain buildup. The crappy thing is that I can't care about the team because I need to care about the individuals. Mm-hmm. And I wish that each issue were actually just like building up to them being a team, but it were personal exploration of like, not just like the origin of their powers and things like that, but what put them on the path where they decided I need to be an out superhero.
Yeah.
I think that there could have been so many different, diverse, and complex stories about why Angel chooses not only to be present superhero, but clearly out drag queen superhero. Mm-hmm. That should be an important story, and we don't even address it. Yeah. It's not even touched on. That's a choice. Like, coming out is a choice that is hard for most of that community, from what I understand. And for whether it's, just in the personal matters or completely in the public forum. So doing it as a superhero is something that I just wish this comic was 100% tackling. Yeah. I would be so much more interested in those personal stories. And this just feels very surface level because it feels like, as much as it's trying to be inclusive of like, trying to hit hard the idea of including trans in the title, which is not handled great in my opinion, or trying to just acknowledge like different sexualities, sort of, it still feels like it's coming from one perspective of what being queer is. Mm-hmm.
I do like it's something that I actually miss, because all of the teams that we read, they've been established for decades, right? So you don't get the founding of a team. And that's something I actually really enjoy. Like Fat Man going like, yo, man, like we're all like part of this community. We should get together and like show them that like, yo, we're here and like we're dope and shit. And like we can save the world together. And like some people think that's a publicity stunt. Some people are like, I'd love to be a part of it. But that's something like, again, I don't get to see very often, is a team actually being built.
For sure.
And again, like I think most of the characters are pretty strong.
I will say many times the characters sound the same, because a lot of them use the same way of addressing people.
Yeah,
they all say darling, they all say honey.
Yeah.
So it gets a little hard to differentiate the characters with something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. I think the only characters I felt like I could hear the voice of were Harvey and Owen and kind of Angel sometimes.
Yeah.
Queen Sapphire, Muscle Mary. I felt like I could hear,
she sounded like Wonder Woman.
She's basically Wonder Woman
yeah.
at the start, but like I can at least hear her identity. I can hear.
It was easy for me to hear Frost because it's like, oh, Emma Frost.
Bro, they didn't even change her name. Her name.
Even when I got,
did you see the design behind the scenes about creating her?
I don't think so.
She was designed originally to be blonde and like all in white, and they're like, we realized we needed to change it because it was too similar to a character from a certain house of ideas.
She's like a head mistress. She's like, yo, man, that's Emma Frost.
So
I ain't mad about it.
Something that bothered me with her is I'm like, I don't. Nothing about her being queer was relevant to the story, which is not like you need to make that, but when that's the point of the comic, you do, and I didn't understand like what her sexuality means to her being dominatrixy. Like none of that was explored as much as I wanted it to. I didn't want a generic coming together of gay superheroes to fight a very, a
Bible man,
as rogue as he can be.
Although the idea of him actually having like the X virus, whatever
the X virus, which allows him to have persuasion.
He's the purple man of religion. Yes. That's a cool twist. I'm like, oh, okay. He's just he's also a big hypocrite because he has a power.
So here's my thing about the XL virus that I kind of had a hard time getting wrapped around. It comes into the book really late, and I think that has to do with the fact that it takes 7 years and the story evolves and changes.
Yeah. Yes.
It comes into the story really late, and then it becomes relevant to the story and then doesn't become relevant to the story in the same panel. When he's like, okay, now I just have persuasion over the XL positive people, except for everybody in the Pride, who most of them are XL positive.
No, like just 3 are XL positive, but they are all immune for some reason, and it's not explained.
Yeah.
Like at least
I don't understand.
It's just like a throwaway
with
line.
Owen, it's acknowledged that it's like maybe because of things that happened when I attended the camp he ran.
Maybe that's
like it, but it's not explaining the other two.
That could be like foreshadowing stuff, but it's not done in a good way.
No.
Like it's like, oh, maybe they're mean for some reason, like, but it's not.
It wouldn't have been a problem, except that that issue starts with like showing you who on the team is XL negative and who on the team is XL positive.
That's
and
true.
It's like, okay, but none of the XL positive on the Pride are affected, and there's no clear reason why.
Yeah.
And the Justice Division characters who are XL negative are not affected.
Exactly, but every XL positive other superhero is. That's another thing, is that like I can't feel any stakes or weight to that end battle because I don't know who any of those supers are. Mm-hmm. Like, I understand they're generic stand-ins for other supers, but like, okay, the stakes don't mean anything to me. This isn't like all of a sudden I saw the Justice League turned on its head. I wish that they had just been more of the Justice League, Justice Division that we saw before brought up again.
The Venusian I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have genders in their world, but like, he doesn't want to complicate things, so he just calls himself a male. I'm like, you're just complicit then. You're just whatever. Like,
sure.
Like, even aliens are complicit in bigotry. And I'm like, that's an interesting thing you didn't really do much with, but it's a kernel of a cool idea.
There's so much like cool stuff on a base. Did you guys know how Fabman's powers work until you read his origin? Because I didn't know how they worked until I read his origin.
I didn't realize he was a Green Lantern.
I thought he was just like Superman, but
his powers are related to the different rays of light.
Yeah.
That's why he flies a rainbow. I know.
Do
you know that?
No. Considering this is like, that should be properly explained.
No, it should be
100%.
I mean, like, okay,
he's literally
Superman.
His powers are the representation of a rainbow, and it's not actually emphasized at all in the 6 issues.
Yeah.
The only reason I knew that was from the origin I read at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I hate his origin. Can we just talk about how much I hate his origin? He's already studly, handsome gay man who's out and about, and then just aliens decide, you know what? You're a righteous man. You're a righteous gay man. Let's just give you superpowers. Yeah. I'm like, why can't... Look, you did the Bruce Wayne allegory 100%. You did the Wonder Woman allegory 100%. Why not just do Superman? He came to Earth with powers. Like, I don't know why we gotta have aliens chose this guy.
Because it doesn't really give him any faults.
There's
He's kind of just like, I'm just a cool dude all the time.
There's a little bit of like... I think there's a little bit too much favoritism for something that wants to be so diverse on really, really white superheroes with some troubling stereotypes about other races, specifically the thug that white trash beats up. Not such a great representation.
When they kept calling him WT, we didn't know what that meant at the time.
Right.
I didn't know he was actually a white dude.
Yeah.
So it's a little...
No. I'm not talking about him. Okay. I'm talking about the thug in the basketball court that he beats up.
He's like...
Who's like the most... Like, he's the most 90s stereotypical, Mexican thug ever. And I'm like, this is troubling in a comic that's supposed to be about, like, breaking down stereotypical barriers.
That's a good point.
And I'm like, there's a blind spot. There's just a blind spot to, like, an amount of racist stereotyping that's present.
Yeah.
Whether it's about thugs or whether it's kind of about some of the black people in the comics.
I think there is a market for this comic. Obviously there is, and it's a great idea to try to tackle this sort of thing. And I'm really happy this type of comic exists. I just wish it was better written.
For sure. That's really how I feel at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I am personally curious about reading some more of the Pride. Like, I've already scoped ahead, and the Pride Adventures looks much more like the comic I want, which is a whole lot of vignettes that do personal stories and explore the world. There's one where it's just about Wolf supporting Owen to go talk to his parents after being out as a superhero, and that's like 4 pages. But it's a really nice 4 pages. I just glanced through that and read that one, and just spotlighted a few others. I'm like, I want the whole book to be that. I want the whole book to really, really good comics are able to make you feel like you can relate to the heroes on a personal level. And I wish that this made me feel like I can connect about. I know there are good personal stories for all the representations under the rainbow that are here in this comic. I know there are good personal stories for them. I wish that this was trying to tell me them so that I could feel something connecting and then go into about them being superheroes.
Yeah.
I wish that was a more. I wish this thing that's supposed to be about forming a 100% LGBTQ super team was about putting their sexuality on display in a way where you can connect to it. And it doesn't really do that. It's really just, again, like surface level really feels like the best way to describe it, because it's very much just for, it does feel like it's not written for me. It feels like it's written for members of that community, which is awesome to have something to look up to. But I want it to be more. I want it to be something where I can recommend it to other people and be like, look at this great representation of people from that community and like having their own superheroes. Like that can be done. I've read that in other books.
I was going to say, we've kind of been on a roll, not with the last book we read, Nightwing, the New Order, but like tackling political issues in comics where the author brings real personal experience to the comic that makes you really relate and care for the people in that comic because it feels real.
Right.
I didn't feel any personal like stakes in this comic. I'm sure there might have been, but it wasn't.
They don't connect.
They don't connect with me. Yeah, it didn't feel personal. It felt like I'm writing a superhero comic and the character happens to be gay.
Like, okay, so one of my biggest, I guess, issues with this book is actually the villain. I felt like the villain, the villain was hardly ever there, but also I felt like the villain was really low-hanging fruit. You have a Southern pastor who loves his Bible and hates the gays, so therefore everyone who's LGBTQ is the devil. I mean, obviously that's very stoked in real life. I mean, come on, we know that. But at the same time, it's like you could have done something better there. But I just felt like it was low-hanging fruit. That I was like, oh, we need a villain. This is easy. Sure, let's do that.
I won't even necessarily say low-hanging fruit, because I think I understand just from like people I know in life that like those are some of the worst offenders in their world.
Oh, of course.
Are the people who throw around the weight of God to be the thing that they can they gives them the right to kill you. I think that's fine. What I wish is that he hadn't been focal. That it wasn't about the villain stuff, that it wasn't about his plot. It was about these superheroes, and then they get their shit together as a team and present themselves. I've already connected with them because I learned about them and all these other things. And they stop this big, you don't have to do a lot with him. He's obviously bad man. You don't need to do a lot with it, and it's fine that he's the stereotype of that, because then you don't have to explain a lot. And if they didn't spend so much time with him, that wouldn't have bothered me at all. I'd be like, yeah, whatever, because he's not what's important about the story. What's important about the story is who these heroes are.
If you would have used all that time, again, it's not even that much time. It's only a couple pages in every issue, even if that. If you would have took that time to focus on the characters, you still could have introduced this stereotype evil guy near the end. Same impact. Right. It would have the same exact impact. He's a perfect introductory heel for these heroes.
Yeah, he's not like because he's so easy to just get. I know why he's bad. That's it. It's just unfortunate that they gave so much airtime, in a sense, to him rather than letting me connect more personally. I had a big problem with Wolf most of the time, because I felt like Wolf was just 100% a different character after issue 1.
100%.
I thought he was Wolverine. I thought he was Wolverine.
And then after that, he's Batman. But he's not even Batman. He's like more cheery and happier half the time than Fabman. And I'm like, that doesn't
he's
even
Dick Grayson Batman.
Yeah, it's weird. And I'm like, this is not the way you should have set him up for me.
He's sitting in that bar drinking. He looks like Wolverine. All the other characters look like the characters they're representing. So I'm like, oh, cool. I like Wolverine. His name's Wolf. Whatever.
I was into.
He's a billionaire.
I was into. That's never important.
No.
I was into the somber, more sallow gay man who didn't really want to wanted to be against the bright colors. Yeah,
he gets a jet for them.
Yeah. But he didn't really the bright colors are too much for him kind of thing. I was ready for that to be a different because not everybody is as gay as Fabman is, you know, and Wolf
they're not as flamboyant as Fabman.
And Wolf is toned down, but he's not as toned down as I was prepped for from that first issue. I thought this was going to be a whole other perspective on the gay experience. One that I'm more familiar with, frankly, from people I know. So that's what I was prepared for. And that wasn't it. He just won 80s as a character after that.
Yeah.
I don't like the inciting incident for Fabman to put the team together. Is it the
club or what?
It's the boys. It's the boys making fun of the other kid for having a figure of him.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, this is a weak weak start to why he wants to do this, because he revisits it at the end and he's like, hey man, I got you another Fat Man figure. And then he's like, hold on, I want you to have this Fat Man figure.
Old shitty one. I see the sweetness.
No, I see it, but as an inciting incident, I don't mind so much the coming back the Fat Man figure thing. Is weird. Yeah. It's that as an inciting incident, I'm like, I wanted it to go further. This is not what I know real persecution for like that kid gets beat up in real life. You know, that kid gets like dragged hardcore. I wanted Fat Man to like really have to save that kid. Not just like, oh, they're making fun of him for having a figure. I want him to really have to pull him out of the shit.
Again, it never
and that be the thing that puts him on, we gotta change this because this kid just got beaten up for being a fan of me.
See, it uses like the really gross derogatory language, but it doesn't dive deep into the emotional like resonance of why, like what that does to somebody or
shallow.
Anything. It's shallow. It's shallow.
It's not trying to make you. Yeah. It's not trying to make you feel like this is something you can relate to.
Yeah. Like this kid gets bullied and then just like the gay Superman shows up, everything's fine, don't worry. And I'm like you can do something
that's the
here.
thing. But that's the thing where he's like, man, they made fun of me for liking you, and it's just that moment, and it's like, no, let me see the real way that that kind of bigoted bias is, and let me feel that so that I feel like it's warranted. Like Fat Man's on a mission after that.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, no, we have to change our perception because I don't want kids getting beaten up for being fans of us. The world needs to see us as heroes.
You think
the world needs to believe in it.
It's not like exactly the same like subject, but it's about hating people and stuff. But like I think of Superman versus the Klan, and how that is a like almost a kid story, but it tackles that a really important subject matter while still being about superheroes. Right. Like it doesn't shy away from that stuff. Yeah. And I'm like, I just wonder because like this is like an amateur comic person. Like it's his first comic. Like it was too much for him. Then he didn't want to overdo it because like he maybe thought it would have been too much. But I would say, man, just go for it instead of
risk it. Swing
risk
for
it. What was that book club? What was that book club we read a little bit ago? Genderqueer. You know, you look at something like Genderqueer, which we read a little bit ago.
It's a memoir. Yeah, it's
very personal, but also it's about a person whose life wasn't as persecuted as it could have been as someone else. So, but they were. Air was able to get the pronouns to relate in a very personal way to, and you were able to relate if your life was worse.
Yes.
Than that life, and you were able to relate if your life was not as worse as that life, and so you have a really good representation of what that life could be, and you feel personal about it, and you feel like you can relate to it, even if you aren't in that world. And here, he just kind of shies away from diving into the personal bit of it, and so you don't relate to the characters.
Yeah,
and that's a problem.
Like one of the ones I find the most relatable, even though I just want more from him, is Owen. Because Owen is the one who's like, I'm kind of here because I left my parents and my whole life behind because my parents don't seem to support that I'm gay. Yeah. And I am, and I'm a superhero, so here I am. And he's just trying to he's very unaware of the world, not just the superhero world, but the LGBTQ world. Yeah. And so he asks a lot of questions, and I'm like, Owen is the most endearing character for that reason.
He should almost be like our focal, if anything, because he's the new person.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, yes, 100%. And it's just a shame that so little is explored about these other things. Like everything is just so. I just want to go a little deeper. I just want to go like that moment after they think Harvey might be dead and they're having a funeral for him. And Queen Sapphire goes to the bar to find Frost. And they have that personal moment. I'm like, cool. Yeah. I still kind of want to go deeper on what's going on here. You know, where are these people at? Because I can't get the full read on it.
I didn't get any indication. This is also this is an issue of a lot of people hooking up and kissing, but I didn't feel any sparks or anything before. I was like, oh yeah, they're getting together. I'm just like, oh, they're kissing, cool.
I was also kind of like, do we need to do a whole LGBTQ super team and everybody pairs up in it? Because we have three pairings in this team, and I'm like, come on, a lot of them can have interests with other people that aren't on the team, guys.
right.
Like, or at least show that somebody on the team isn't into someone else on the team.
Yeah.
Like, show me that Fab Man gets laid all the time. I don't care. Show me that he's banging
That
dudes
dude's
left
got a
and
bar.
right. Yeah,
He's gotta be.
He's got to be getting banged left and right, right? Show me that at least that's happening somewhere. Like, man,
his bar is called Fantabulosa,
and that's pretty good. But at the same time, they're having things like White Trash is into Harvey. And Harvey's into White Trash, and they play with that. But then when Harvey gets taken, they don't even touch on the fact that White Trash was romantically interested in Harvey. Yeah,
right.
It never comes up again. And I'm like, man, use these things.
And another thing is that I get how Jake wants to go get to his dad, but like one of the origin stories at the end of the books, the one I was actually most interested in was Harvey's, was Bears. How he would.
Wolverine.
What's up?
Jake is Wolverine.
Jake is Wolverine. Yeah. But how he was married and then he got the XL virus, he got his powers, and then he came out to his wife and she left. But then when he's talking about his son, how it was like they never kept a secret from him. I was like, I want to see that relationship. I want to see him growing a relationship with his son, because obviously it's there, because Jake is willing to kill. He almost kills Basher. And also, that's another thing. He slits Basher's throat. And then it's like, oh, Jake, what have you done? No repercussions.
Well, Basher's alive.
Because later in a throwaway line, they say that Basher is alive. He's just
in a throwaway line. No. Give me some damn consequences of that. Have Harv come up and
can I
give me something.
This is something that I just thought of. The connotations of making it a virus are very strange to me. Think about the meta gene or the X gene in both the X-Men books and everywhere else. They call it a gene. It's a gene that's passed down and it activates when you're in your puberty. But calling it a virus is strange to me.
Virus is something you get. So
yeah,
it is. I guess they had to call it something that sounded like gene or something. I don't think that there's too much thought.
Call it the XL gene.
I don't think. But you can't, because it's the X gene.
You can't copyright the CEL.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they're he's right, because they're aping off enough other.
No,
shit
I know.
Here, again, all that would be. I don't care about you being basically rote for rote copying things that exist in other comics as far as it comes to the hero archetypes. I don't care, but make them individuals of their own. Make it so I can we're kind of repeating ourselves on that, but make it so I can connect to them. Have consequences for these characters. Make these characters feel like something. Let me see White Trash be upset that Harvey's missing and or dead. Since you showed me that he was romantically interested in him. I feel like the only relationship that's given its due amount of creation, and again, it's because he's probably written the best, is Owen being into Wolf. Also, one of the coolest and quirkiest things in this comic for me is when Owen reveals he can't go into the burning building because the fire will heat up the metal of his skin. And I'm like, that's a dope observation about that power.
Same with, who is it? Is it the Wonder Woman lady? Where she has confusion powers?
No.
And Angel.
Sorry. But Angel couldn't go in either because you confuse all the people in there. I'm like, they're
I wanted to get to that. How do we feel about Angel's powers? Because it a little bit bothers me that the trans member of the team has a confusion power. Because they confuse other people.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Oh, God.
Also, I don't think that power is well realized. I don't think visually I understand it.
I don't understand it.
I understand it twice, and then otherwise I don't get it. I'm like, why can't it just be telepathy? But it has to be confusion abilities. And I'm like, why does the trans person have to confuse everyone?
I actually didn't know, because I know in the very beginning of the book when Angel said, there needs to be Tina, there's trans people there need to be represented. I was like, oh, okay, so Angel's trans. Not only is she a drag queen, but she's also trans woman. Okay, cool. And then later down the line, when we get to Harv's funeral, he's wearing a suit with his wife, and they're like, wait, what? Because they don't recognize him outside of drag. So I'm like, wait,
because they're pansexual.
Yeah. So I'm like, wait, is he trans? Is he not? What? I had no idea what was going on.
He is trans. They are transgender and pansexual.
Okay.
Yeah. The confusion powers are kind of a problem, but look, I'll forgive it if they were well realized, which they're not. And there's only one good gag about them, and otherwise it's just kind of like, I confuse people to think that I'm a woman sometimes. I'm like, oh.
That's for sure. See, that's the thing, is that like I'm not immediately like you don't have to tell me like the trans person has powers of confusion and then I go, wow, hard no. That's not necessarily what I mean, because like you have character Pyro in X-Men, he's a hothead and his power is fire. Oh, great. Okay. But that can work. The emotions are tied to the powers, whatever. Mm-hmm. You can do that kind of thing in that kind of allegory. It's just that the powers themselves are, pardon the pun, confusing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so their representation becomes kind of meaningless. Yeah. Angel, in my opinion, is the worst realized character in this whole thing. I feel like I've seen drag queen stories told so much better in so many places. Doom Patrol being one of them, for sure. I thought of that too. Being a friend with a gay man who absolutely loves RuPaul's Drag Race, I don't think he would find Angel very believable at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that super problematic because I think the optics on both the fact that that Angel is transgender and black are poorly handled.
Yeah.
In this comic, and I desperately like the idea of the character. Sometimes I really like the visualization of the character, depending on who the artist is. I think Angel looks downright awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I would love for this to be a hero, like seriously. And I no knocks to Joe Glass. Like no serious knocks. Like we're criticizing. But I respect what this work is trying to do. Mm-hmm. I just would deeply encourage, and I haven't read the latest stuff, but I would deeply encourage that this needed to have a whole lot more personal touch to these characters.
Yes. All right. Anything else we want to add? Or
Harvey has the best origin page. I don't think the origin pages at the end are worth much, but Harvey's explains his HIV, which is that after he came out to his wife, he was kind of lost and confused. So he started sleeping with a whole bunch of men. And while I'm like, I do find it a little bit like it can be problematic to just say, well, once gay men start going and having sex, they automatically get HIV. But I can also understand like that being a more honest representation of that, how easily that can happen when you just start having a whole lot of partners because you have just come out and you're kind of lost and you slip up on your responsibilities or being careful or checking or thinking about it. And that's understandable. That's very human. Mm-hmm. And I find Harvey to be a very compelling character, both because of his origin, because of that moment with Owen. God, do I love that moment with Owen. That moment, it felt like Joe Glass suddenly put something so real on the page.
Yeah.
Like a conversation he'd had with someone. And I wish that the book had more of it. That moment was so good. This very honest approach of like, hey man, are you cool? And he's like, honestly, I don't know a lot about HIV and it's kind of wigging me out. And he's like, dude, I get it. I hear it all the time. Let me explain it to you.
It felt real and educational at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I really respect that moment.
Yeah.
I think that's really awesome.
I agree.
And I just wish there was a lot more into that. I wish Fabman were more explored as a character because I feel like he's just kind of the poster boy of gayness.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot to it. It's just good ideas that it seems like if you really want to check this stuff out, then you can go through this, or maybe you want to jump ahead into some of the other stuff because I looked forward at Pride Adventures. And that stuff looks, I'm going to read it because that stuff looks much more like what I came for, which is like very personal, intimate stories that relate to these characters. Even if it is about them beating up a villain, there's something tied to what it means for them to be there as queer LGBTQ representatives.
Yeah. There's again, no disrespect to any of the artists. A lot of it didn't work for me. There was one artist specifically that I think was on issue 4, but it's just there's a very clear art change where it's like, oh,
you want me to scan through real quick?
Yeah, sure. Where it's like, oh, this looks good.
This is issue 3.
Okay. It's not that.
Okay.
It's definitely not that.
I did really like the art on issue 3 though.
Oh man, speaking of character, the bad guy changes looks so hard.
Every time we see him, he's a different look.
It might not be that. No, it might be issue 5 then, just one specific part then. Maybe we'll find out in just one
There's
second.
So many artists on these.
There's a lot.
You guys go ahead and like. I do
this
like
one.
Yeah, issue 4.
It's issue 4.
It's issue 4, which is where they fight Basher, which is the really confusing opening where I have to like reorient myself because Wolf is in his boxers. But I do like
these look like
Harvey's realization. Like if the whole comic was that,
you mean this is Hit? This is Hit from Dragon Ball Super. That guy.
Yeah.
He looks like Hit from Dragon Ball Super, Brandon.
Jiren.
Sorry, Jiren.
Basher looks like Jiren in issue 4 for sure.
Yeah, he's got the red shirt.
Harvey's art in issue 4 fighting Basher is really, really good. I do like the fight with Basher.
I think it's a good fight, yeah.
Visually, I like that art a lot.
Yeah.
5 is the one where we get like a whole bunch of different artists. I think the opening artist is pretty good.
Yeah.
Where we see Angel outside of the drag for the first time at the funeral and everything. I thought that first art section was good. And then we start varying it up and it gets a little wonky. Especially
that looks nothing like the villain from the last issue.
He starts looking like an elf.
He has white hair, sometimes he has black hair, sometimes he's tall, sometimes he's short.
Issue 6 artist as well. I do think issue 6, like if the whole comic looked like issue 6, I'd be cool. Issue 4, issue 6, I'd be like cool.
Yeah. And again, like
I think issue 6 has the best representation of Angel, in my opinion, artistically.
Oh
Yeah.
Confusion guns.
Okay.
But I respect a lot of the like designs on display, and it is very, very out, as it were.
I think we've kicked this comic enough.
I really like it. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't mean. I think we all were in kind of a place where it's like, man, I don't want to like bash the gay comic, but I also don't want to pull my punches just because it's a gay representation comic.
And again, it's unlike we've talked about other comics before that are about representations that are not ours, and we've given our honest opinions, and they've been good and bad as well. So like at the end of the day, this is still a comic that we have to review, and it has a great subject matter, but like at the end of the day, it's an okay comic.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry. That's not a bad thing.
And I respect it for all the work that went into it.
Yeah.
It's a passion project.
He's made a comic and none of us have. Like that's more than
there's a lot of valuable stuff here. I think that the intent versus the execution became a battle of like what got done and kill your darlings kind of arguments, I imagine.
Yeah.
I hope that because the Pride is still being written, and there's more out there. I'm hoping that is much more in the direction of all the things that we're talking about, because if this is the groundwork and it gets better from here, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like I'm fine with that.
Good foundation.
I know what we're about to say, which is that we as a show are not going to continue reading the Pride for the Fake Nerd Book Club, but I will say that I personally will be checking it out. I encourage people who want to see, really want to see a LGBTQ super team. I would say still give the Pride a look. I think it's worth doing if that is what you are looking for, and hopefully, and I'll probably report on it at some point to you guys on the podcast. The later stuff is maybe better and worth doing. But
so as the show, as Sparks said, we are not going to continue with it. So we are going to pick our new book for the next episode. And before we do that, the Michael Morisi interview is still coming. We have rescheduled that. So hopefully by the next episode that comes out, it'll be that. But we're going to take a wait and see and let you guys know when that happens.
Yes.
Okay, so let me pull up.
Lives and everybody gets busy. It happens.
Yeah.
So I'll address that because of last time, which is something I feared. My pick got picked again.
Oh, yeah.
Which was the Pride. So we have now decided to eliminate whoever got the last pick from the wheel.
Yes.
So I'm not contributing anything this time.
So here is the wheel. So I still have my 2 picks of Power Rangers by Kyle Higgins and Descender by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. I'm going to keep those as my picks for this time. So Ben, since you're right below me, why don't you tell me your picks?
Still same thing. Scott Pilgrim by Brian Lee O'Malley and Star Wars Infinities by multiple writers and artists.
Star Wars Infinities.
I've read all of these comic books.
All right, and Ryan?
I'm picking Magneto by Cullen Bunn and various artists.
Spicy.
Okay.
And The Black Monday Murders by Jonathan Hickman and Tom Coker.
Monday Murders. That has a couple volumes. Okay.
Yeah, these are all pretty short, easy to read.
Okay, so let's. I'm going to shuffle this a couple of times.
Shuffle, 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 baby.
And let's give it a spin.
I've read all these comics, baby. Let's read them again.
Woo!
That's Power Rangers.
Power Rangers.
Go Power Rangers.
Okay.
What Power Rangers?
The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series by Kyle Higgins is the very first Power Rangers series that Boom Studios put out. We will go until Kyle Higgins' run is over. So
or
just his.
Continue reading it, Brandon.
Or if we decide to keep reading it.
Yeah,
exactly.
crazy.
Like this one right here?
Yes.
Yeah.
This could be another Pride bomb. Sorry,
Could
Joe.
be.
I feel bad.
I follow him on Twitter, and I love you, Joe. You're a funny guy on Twitter.
Yeah.
We could just read the first volume and bail out. I'm really excited. I've always wanted to read it, so I'm stoked to give that first volume a read.
Yeah, me too.
The Lord Draken stuff seemed really exciting. So.
Oh, have you not? So you haven't read this ever, then, Brandon?
No.
Okay,
No.
It's Lord Draken. I just never wanted to correct you.
Sorry. Okay, so that'll do it.
I think it gives me up for my birthday one year. I just never read it.
Thanks. All right, so that'll do it. So next time, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Volume 1.
Yeah.
What?
Same guy. Yeah,
Yeah,
same guy.
yeah. I was just confirming. I was pretty sure in my head that we just read Kyle Higgins for Nightwing New Order. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so that'll do it. So next time, stay tuned for that and the Michael Morisi interview coming up. So Wasted Space. So definitely stay tuned for those. Otherwise, you can find us on our podcast. We do the Fake Nerd podcast every Sunday. We've been doing live quarantine casts, except for our 200th episode, which will probably be up by the time you listen to this.
It'll definitely
by the time you're watching this. That is a monster of an episode. If you got the time, we talk about Evangelion. This week, probably going to be news, just news this week. Sparks is out, and we got Comic-Con and Xbox, so we got plenty to talk about.
Oh yeah.
On the book club side of things, to keep it kind of relevant, we are doing Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 1, correct? We had some
Volume
confusion
1
of that. Volume 1. So if you want to read along with that, go ahead. Otherwise, you can find me at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. You can find Ben.
You can find me on the internet at BenMagnet27 on both Instagram and Twitter.
Sparks?
You can find me eventually giving my opinion on other Pride books at some later date at Sparks Witty on Instagram and Twitter. I'm going to give you a second round on my own time, Joe Glass.
Ryan.
Hey, I'm DJ Tony Snark everywhere. Type it in. Just don't care.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, click the bell icon to get notified when new videos pop out. We got other videos of Basement Arcade. We got other videos of Fake Nerds Watch. So we got a lot of cool stuff on this YouTube channel and, of course, on our iTunes feed. Until next time, guys, stay fake nerds.